He found out on a Thursday at 7 in the evening, not from Katya, not from a letter or a phone call, but from his own daughter. Anna was pouring herself tea and did not look at him when she spoke. Her words were flat, without any particular intention, but they landed like stones directly into the center of his chest. Mom said she was at the gallery last night, she said. Mark sat across the table, holding his glass of whiskey. His back ached the way it always did in the evenings, a deep throb that ran down into his knees, making them feel as if they were full of sand. His doctor had called it arthritis, but he called it age. The slow and inevitable crumbling of a body he had once taken for granted. He stared at Anna. She was 40 years old, but the way she spoke, the way her eyes narrowed with that familiar critical glint, she might have been 16 again, always angry at him for some unseen failure. He did not answer right away. He swirled the glass, watched the amber liquid catch the dim kitchen light, a small ritual that offered no comfort now. You never really saw her, Dad, Anna said, as if she had been patiently waiting for his silence to fill. You only ever saw your business, the money, never her. And now she cut herself off, but it was too late. The unfinished accusation stayed in the room, heavy and suffocating. Mark took a sip of whiskey. The burn in his throat was a familiar punishment. He said nothing because there was nothing left to say that would not shatter the fragile performance of their lives. That night he could not sleep. He lay on his side, staring at the ceiling where shadows danced from the headlights of passing cars. The house was a tomb of quiet, its silence broken only by the relentless ticking of the old clock in the hallway. He thought of Katya, his wife, the woman who had once laughed so easily, a sound that used to fill the entire house. He remembered how she had leaned against him on their long walks, her way to comfort. The gallery. She had not mentioned it. He had been out late with clients as usual, trapped in another restaurant, another round of vodka, another chorus of voices too loud. He had always hated it, but he told himself it was necessary. Deals had to be made, relationships maintained. His whole life, his entire identity, had been built on this foundation of forced smiles and swallowed pride. Now, lying awake in the dark, he wondered how much he had truly missed. How many nights had she been somewhere else, breathing in art and life, while he was raising toasts to men he despised, swallowing liquor his stomach could no longer handle? The thought twisted in his gut, a sickness that had nothing to do with age. The next morning, over coffee, he studied her. Katya moved around the kitchen with her usual precision, wiping a counter, placing a spoon just so, cleaning as she went. She was still graceful, still beautiful, though the years had carved fine lines along her mouth, and there was a new weariness in her movements that he realized might be for him alone. "Were you at the gallery last night?" he asked, his voice casual, as if the question had just occurred to him, and he'd barely cared about the answer. She paused for only a second, a fraction of a hesitation that screamed a truth her words would not. "Yes," she said. "There was a new exhibition. You wouldn't have liked it." She offered a faint smile and placed a fresh cup of coffee in front of him. He watched her hands. They were still smooth to smooth, he thought with a sudden, bitter clarity. For a woman who had simply gone to an art gallery alone, he wanted to press her, to demand details, to shatter her calm composure. But he did not. The fear of what he might learn was greater than the agony of not knowing. Later that week, he began to notice other things, small betrayals that seemed to glow in the dark. A silk scarf left on a chair carried the faint, sharp scent of a cologne that was not his. There was a new softness in her voice when she answered the phone, turning her back to him to speak in low tones toward the window. He saw the way she dressed more carefully now, applying a trace of lipstick even when she said she was just going out for errands. Each observation was a fresh cut, and he was bleeding inwardly slowly. Then came the proof, undeniable and brutal. She left her phone on the table. He was not the kind of man to pry, at least that is what he had always told himself. But when the screen lit up with a single, stark word, he could not look away. Tonight, the word was a verdict. His chest tightened so violently he could not breathe. He stared at the glowing screen until his own heart beat so loudly he thought the whole house must be shaking with the sound of it. For days afterward, he moved as if underwater. His body was a lead weight, his breath short and ragged. He remembered how they had once walked together in the evenings, hand in hand, without a destination in mind. He remembered how she used to laugh at his stupid jokes, her head thrown back, the sound genuine and full. Now he could barely climb the stairs to their bedroom without wheezing. His chest burned with a constant fire. His knees betrayed him with every step. And she was out there somewhere, alive and laughing with someone else. The thought gnawed at him day and night, a rodent of despair chewing on the foundations of everything he thought was solid. Anna grew sharper, her words honed into weapons. "You think she's the one to blame?" she asked one evening, her voice firm and her jaw tight, as they sat at the same kitchen table where it had begun. He looked at her, exhausted. "She's my wife," he said, the words sounding hollow even to him. "She's more than that," Anna shot back. "She's a woman. And you made her invisible. You never listened, not once." He felt the words strike him harder than any physical blow could. He wanted to shout at her, to tell her she did not understand the pressures of providing, the weight of responsibility. But he could not form the words. He saw in her face the reflection of his own stubbornness, his own pride, and he knew with a sickening certainty that she had chosen her mother. He was utterly alone. Finally, one evening, the question could no longer be contained. He asked Katya directly. They were sitting at the kitchen table. He had poured himself a whiskey he did not want because the ritual was all he had left. It only made his stomach churn. He looked at her, at the woman he had shared a life with for decades, and said quietly, "Is there someone else?" She did not flinch. She did not deny it. She only looked at him with calm, distant eyes, the way a person looks at someone they no longer recognize. He waited, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. His hand trembled slightly as he set the glass down on the table, the clink of it obscenely loud in the silence. "You don't need me to answer that," she said at last. And that was it. The confession was in the absence of denial. That night, after she had gone upstairs to bed, he sat alone in the dark kitchen. Anna had left hours earlier, slamming the door behind her after another bitter argument that had solved nothing. He sat with the whiskey glass in his hand. The ice had long since melted, diluting the liquor until it was warm and tasteless. The house was profoundly silent except for the steady, mocking ticking of the old clock in the hallway. He thought of his body, breaking down piece by piece. He thought of the years he had given to his work, the sacrifices he had made that now felt like a colossal fraud. He thought of all the things he had never said to his wife, to his daughter, the love that had gone unspoken because he was too busy, too tired, too proud. He thought of the narrowing corridor of days still left, the future closing in like a heavy door. What next? He whispered into the consuming dark. There was no answer. Only the clock ticking, ticking, ticking away the remains of his life.